know, she'll find out. I said, why? My name being brought up. And this is way before I got here. And what's going on? And so she gave me the full rundown. And I want to talk after the meeting to, after tonight's meeting, have a talk with Mary. Because I want to have a one-on-one with him, but I don't know if that's okay with the pending litigation and everything. If he's not, it doesn't have anything to do with litigation.
Well, I think you probably could. I don't know.
I want to make sure first. You know, yes, I definitely want to have a one-on-one with him.
When our kids were young, we used to
All the
go
citizens
along
can call and have one. Why
Have
can't
it.
you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little more forward than you are. I'm kind of old school Woodland.
I know went to school in Woodland.
The AC's on
What's
out
that?
here.
Yeah.
I know.
I almost dropped a jacket.
I know.
Thank you for
I know you
presents.
didn't know that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah?
Being here.
Ready for the fort
I can
tomorrow?
tell.
A war zone in our neighborhood?
Yes.
I'm starting.
Happy 14th.
Well, you too.
Good evening, oh, I didn't record. Hold on. Is it going to the side? This way?
Yep.
Let me see here.
Recording stopped.
There we go.
Recording in progress.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is July 3rd, 2023 at 7:01 p.m. This is a regular meeting for the City Council of Woodland. Please ensure your cell phones are silenced and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Hogan, will you please take the roll?
Okay, here we go.
Councilmember Burke? Councilmember Rounds?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Holland?
Present.
Councilmember Dowdy?
Here.
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Alderman?
Here.
Everyone is here. Moving on to citizen communications for items not on the agenda. But before we get started, I'm asking council to suspend the rules to allow the agenda that's been brought forward for citizen communication to allow for communications during, before a vote is taken on consent items and before each action item, C through G this evening.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Smith, second by Councilmember Dowdy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to citizen communications for items not on the agenda, and we have Mary Hall. Welcome. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for letting me.
And if I can get you just bring that in just a little bit, so there we go. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm here tonight because there may be someone in this room that hasn't had a chance but would like to sign a petition, R101. The design of it is to cancel a law that was passed at the end of the legislative session, 5599. The point of the law was the point that has people kind of concerned, very concerned, of the law is that it allows for minors to move forward with sex change without notification of parents. So here are 3 salient points of the law. Includes gender surgeries for minors. It bypasses parents, and it equates not using preferred pronouns to child abuse. So here's the scenario. If you are a parent and your child wants to consider having a sex change or a gender change, and you say no, the child runs away from home, lands in a shelter. The shelter is required by this law, the current law, to not notify you and in fact not tell you if you called that your child is there. And so the point of this petition is if you would like to see that, if you'd like a chance to vote to see that taken off out of our legal system, sign this. You have to be sure that you are a registered voter in Washington State, and you must not have already signed it. And the other important thing to note if you sign it is that there's a place for a date right in the middle. That's your birth date, not today's date. So I will put this out on the table. So if you're interested in signing it, please do.
I have a question
Thank
about
you.
it though.
Yes.
At what age can they do that? What's the youngest age that will do that?
I don't know the youngest age, but the language says those minors under 12. So I don't know how far down it goes,
That's
but
enough for me.
I mean how far down. So, okay.
My God.
Any other questions or concerns?
I did sign it. I'll openly
Okay.
admit that I signed it because during Planters Days when they had the booth down at the Women's Wellness Clinic
Thank you.
with Miss Stacy. So
I will
thank
be
you for
tonight
doing that.
before I leave.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been around, and we have until July 15 to collect 200,000 signatures.
Is this a statewide initiative?
Yes, yes, it's
effort?
all,
Okay.
all over the state.
Okay.
So,
Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the gallery who failed to sign up at the beginning of the meeting for items not on the agenda? Or would just like to get up and talk? Anyone online? Oh, you have something? Okay. And I need you to state your name,
You do.
please.
Yeah, Donna Butler.
Okay.
I
thank
just
you.
like to say thank you that you itemize on the vouchers what the payments are going out to. I've been attending school board meetings and the superintendent asked the school board to approve over $200,000. Don't know what for yet. It's not listed out, but they'll list it out eventually, but because of banking dates, they said we got to allow it for the bank. Anyway, I'm like, I think you could talk to your bank and get some dates changed so you could at least itemize before you ask the school board to approve. That's a large amount, so I really appreciate that you put it all out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else for items not on the agenda in the gallery? Anyone online? Moving on to the agenda itself.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and seconded by, I'll give this one to Mrs. Rounds.
Just think I was doing something wrong because nobody jumped in. I'm like,
Mrs. Hogan.
why is nobody approving this?
Nope, stand by.
Um,
Mrs. Holland.
so, are we approving the agenda?
Just the agenda itself,
Okay.
not are you talking about the minutes?
Yeah, cause Mr.
That would be-
Fashion's name is wrong.
That would be under consent items. when we get to it.
Okay.
Councilmember Alderman,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mrs. Holland. Oh, Carol, sorry. And moving on to reports of City Council. Mr. Hall.
Yes, I
We're going
will.
to kick it off to you tonight.
I will start. I really want to thank you, Your Honor, for encouraging me to go to the Association of Washington Cities convention. I was the only one from Woodland there. All our little towns around us had at least one or two representatives as well. So there was a good Cowlitz County contingency there. Fabulous convention. More than you can ever possibly take in. It's just mind-blowing. I went to the ones that were most interesting to me, and I never had a down moment. And it was just run from one to the next and try to take notes. But a lot of those things are online, and so just an excellent convention. So I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank Peter and the rest of the staff for the help of getting that all set up and making it come to pass. It was a good trip. We had a chance to meet with various resources and people, suppliers and providers and grantors and problem solvers, attorneys for the city, for the state. It just was really, really well done with a lot of information, a lot of, some of it even very inspirational. So, you know, I would recommend it to anybody from the city that ever wants to go to one of those. They do a good job. And Spokane is beautiful. It was on the, of course, at the convention center, and so it was, you know, you're crossing the river and the Riverside Park and all that part of town is just gorgeous. A lot of training, a lot of information, and I did carry the flag in the parade of flags, and because Yacolt and Yakima and Yelm all failed to send anybody, I was at the end of the line with the flag, so, because Woodland was. Anyway, thank you very much for that. It was a terrific.
Well, shame on them.
Yeah. It was kind of fun being at the end.
Well, thank you for going, and thank you for gift with purchase here. That's some new playing cards. Washington Association of Cities always does a great job with all the amazing training online for any elected official is amazing too.
Do they just do a convention once a year?
This was the annual convention, and with the business meeting, a lot of that's set in stone before you get there, but it really was good.
So I think last year's was in Vancouver.
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they bring it to Vancouver every other year, and then
It'll be Vancouver next year.
next year,
yes.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
true.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Anyone else for reports of City Council? Seeing none. Moving on to public safety.
No report.
Okay.
Cancel the meeting.
Public Works,
That's me.
Mrs. Holland.
We started a little, late and we just finished, so we met, today. Some of the highlights going on in Public Works, let's see, for the first time, Woodland got to host the, water purveyors meeting. First time they had done that, and they discuss water operations and challenges with other utilities and look for new solutions and learn from each other, so that's kind of cool. Kind of like the AWC Shindig, where you get to meet other people and learn what they're doing in their cities. Let's see, here's a good one, so government. Department of Health has determined that the city needs to test for lead and copper on pipes that aren't ours.
Wait, they're gonna send us a check? No? Oh. Let's go.
Department of Health has requested all cities check and do an inventory of what type of lead and copper pipes are in their community. So we have to do an inventory of any. We don't have any lead pipes in our community, but they're asking for lead pipes that are also owned by the citizens. So the only way we can check that is by looking at the meter, and to see when you go in and replace a meter, you can see what type of pipe is connected on the other side. So we haven't figured out how we're gonna do it yet, but that is a new requirement.
Is this a mandate?
Yes.
A funded mandate, I'm assuming.
No,
Right.
no.
Oh, an unfunded mandate.
Unfunded mandate
Just
by the
checking.
Department of Health, correct.
checking.
They haven't given us a timeline yet.
Sorry, my question to Mrs. Holland's gonna be, and they sent a check to help with that project, right?
Wouldn't that be special?
Yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead.
So, again, Public Works has nothing better to do.
Right.
So after that, let's see, they had some, pipe failures that they, dealt with, replaced some bad meters, one bad meter since last month. Y'all are catching up really quick. They had some more high reads that they contacted, ratepayers to let them know that they had high rates. A lot of it is because people are watering their yards, but it's good to know that they're looking out for people. Let's see, Westcott Avenue, Water Railroad Crossing, the final piping was done today. Paving is scheduled for the rest of later this week. There's gonna be, just so everybody knows, there's lane closures on the freeway because the state is doing some work. Look on the city website, it's there. It's not us. Oh, I thought this was interesting. Again, a learning opportunity. Tim toured the Clark Regional Wastewater Operations Center at the end of June, and he learned a lot from that, how they do things, and and now he's kind of working on how he can implement some of the things he learned for our community, which it's cool that he has an opportunity to get out and about and see what other people are doing. Wastewater treatment plant got a crack seal and seal coat project was completed at the end of last month. Next week, maybe, paving's gonna happen on Willow, so if you live over on Willow, look out for signs, they're gonna tell you not to park on the road so they can work on them. Pine as well. Let's see, here's a fun one. There was a raw sewage spill on Old Pacific from I-5 South off-ramp to the Lewis River roundabout. It looks like somebody was towing an RV that just kind of left a trail of breadcrumbs, and so they got to clean that up. You'll notice when you pulled in here at the police station that bark dust has been applied and the shrubs have been trimmed. Over at 100 Davidson, if you were out and about for Planners Day, you noticed that they finished painting over there. They're currently prepping the Randy Well and the old fire station around the corner for some painting, utilizing the nice weather. There's been some graffiti in the bathroom at Horseshoe, so stop it. Downtown, the flower baskets, you'll probably notice that they're looking pretty, even though it's warm out. They've been watering those. Something I thought was interesting is they're using some stormwater money that's come in with the utilities to fix a problem that somebody's been asking to have addressed for many, many, many years, and so they finally have some funding to fix that. Let's see. For Scott Hill Park artificial turf, the city received a $308,914 grant. So that's gonna put in some artificial turf. The city has a match of $132,393. So overall, that's a pretty small portion for almost a $450,000 project. So again, as a resident, I appreciate the efforts on getting grant dollars. And let's see, what else do we have? There was somebody has quit, we're hiring. Water treatment plant operator is leaving us, so they are hiring for that position. So if you know anybody who wants to work there, please have them apply. And unfortunately, we were not recipients of this year's RAISE grant, which, for those of you who've been coming to meetings for a while, that would have helped fund Exit 21. And this is the third year that Woodland has not been a recipient. They have third or fourth, that you have applied, and the money has went to other places in our state. So that one, that's kind of painful. And again, something I like to tell people is it's more impactful if you would talk to your legislators in Olympia. As residents, it's more impactful when you give your opinions on where money needs to go. And then we concluded with, there's an RFP for engineering out to bid for, what is this? Exit 21 from the county. So we're asking them for some, or engineering.
We have an RFP out, we already have the funding from the county.
There you go. So, and that pretty much concludes our meeting. I know, not super exciting, I didn't talk about
It's good stuff, though.
biosolids, which are really sexy, but anyway.
And how they're trucked across the state.
And that, yeah.
Any questions for Mrs. Holland?
I would just like to make a comment. I'd like to thank Public Works for fixing the pothole that was at Fraser Lane and CC Street, isn't it? Yes. So I was glad I didn't think about telling you about it until after the bus quit running, and so hopefully it'll be good and solid by the time they start running again.
We make no guarantees.
I know.
But I will guarantee that if you fill out online and you see potholes in the city and you fill it out, we take those requests weekly and we go out and we do our pothole repairs. And then we also put that on our list to cut out and put hot mix asphalt in there for our annual asphalt patching. So if we see it's a repetition one and it doesn't hold up, then we go ahead and put hot mix asphalt in there.
Okay.
Resident of Woodland, and my name is Maggie Smith. And I would like to ask you, what company is going to do the asphalt on Willow Street?
That would be a question for Ms. Coleman, actually.
It's the lowest bidder, and I believe it was Lakeside Industries, and we piggyback on the county contract, so we get a lower cost.
So, are they the company that did Madrona and Rhododendron?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. Is it
But-
on the agenda for action this evening?
But I need to look at that because I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I think Lakeside does a ton of paving, don't they? I think they're pretty reputable.
Yeah.
They did the whole freeway section.
Yeah,
for
they are
Calhoun
very
County.
reputable, and that's who bid. But it's whoever bids the contract, and that's the government. The way it works is you award it to the lowest bidder. You don't get a choice.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Holland. Moving on to reports of city officers. I had the pleasure of golfing in the Rotary Golf Tournament here on the 23rd, which was fun. Always a good time. Chief and I did not win this year, but we will try again at another date.
Did they raise a lot of money?
I don't know. I don't know what the money level.
I haven't heard yet.
And I believe that that's the Christmas program.
The
Yeah.
Christmas and scholarships.
And scholarships, okay. Gave out our first yard of the month to the resident on Garrick Street, right next to Red Leaf. We had 2 submissions, and that was the submission that was selected. So if you drive down Garrick Street, you will see a wonderful sign next to the Red Leaf there.
I saw it.
Oh, good.
I saw it this weekend too.
Congratulating them on their wonderful job. Continue sending in those photos, and we will continue to vote. Fun little program. Exit 21. I think it's important to say that I know that we've applied multiple times and have not received funding. We've asked for the state. We've asked 3 times at the federal level. This is our 3rd time at the federal since I've been here. But we are going to continue getting the engineering done so we have a shovel-ready project that we can hopefully shop around again. We have a project now, but for whatever reason, we will be having another debrief meeting on that application process here in about 30 days, and they will tell us where we did not hit the mark when it comes to that. We had that same meeting which I attended last cycle, and I believe that we did everything that they told us to do. They were very critical, and there was a few items that they wanted more of, and we made sure that we provided those items to them this time. So I'm a little disappointed that we have gone above and beyond and did exactly what they told us to do, and we were still not selected. So in about a month, we'll find out where we missed the mark this time. But I will make sure to let them know that I'm disappointed, as I always do, and we will go from there. But we will continue working on Exit 21 with the help from the county, and we appreciate their partnership so we can get that, at least get to a project that is shovel ready. So with that, I will turn that over to Mr. Boyce.
Thank you. Just a couple things. So the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, we're going to be putting out an advertisement shortly soliciting volunteers for that committee for this year. If anyone knows anyone from one of the hotels in town or motels in town. Last few years, we haven't had any representation, and there's a spot dedicated to those folks on the committee. So if you know anyone, please reach out to them. We'll have those going out soon. Also, as everyone probably knows, July 4th, tomorrow, will be closed. It's important, July 6th, we have the comp plan open house, so we encourage the community to attend and give their perspective. July 7th, Hot Summer Nights continues and movies in the park. So that's my report for this
All right.
evening.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. And we're going to go down the table tonight. Chief, do you have anything?
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Coleman?
Yeah, I just want to add that our Hot Summer Nights movies in the park, it is military night. So Military Appreciation Night, we'll have military vehicles there, and we're showing Buzz Lightyear. So that'll be a good one to come see. And then also, when I was thinking about the street, that was not a grind and overlay that we did on those streets. Those were chip sealed, and they were done by the county. We're actually doing grind and overlays on these other roads. So it's a total different process. We have handouts on the different types of process for road overlays and chip sealing, so we can get that to you, but it'll be a total different process. And Lakeside is the one that came in and cleaned up the mess on Gorig Street. So when you look at Gorig Street and you look at Horseshoe Lake, Lakeshore Ave, so they're the ones who do that. So those are pretty nice roads. I think you'll be pleased.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Mr. Goddard?
I have two quick updates. One is the Cardai Hill Mine in Clark County. There was a misunderstanding that there had been an appeal filed against the environmental impact statement. That has since been cleared up. There was not an appeal of the county's environmental determination on that, and the applicant did not file that, or did not appeal that change, and they are proceeding with their environmental impact statement for that project. And so we updated our website to clarify that there was no pending appeal, and they are moving ahead with their study. The second thing I needed to point out is that the city has been reviewing its policy for public records requests, and I've made the statement publicly several times recently that we have been unsuccessful about recovering costs for the production of those documents, and reinterpreting the the fee ordinance and the state RCWs, that there is in fact an opportunity for us to recover some of those costs, and we have not been doing that in the last couple of years. So I wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be revisiting that policy and bringing it back to you probably at the next meeting. We should have something for the agenda. But if you hear anything out in the community, that I wanted to let you know ahead of time that that is in fact correct. There is a way, and it is going to tend to be a very small amount of money. So for example, if we send 4 documents electronically, you can charge up to a nickel for each 4 documents. So if we send 200 or 400, we could theoretically collect $5. If we send 1,000, we might collect $50. So it's a nominal amount, and there are some other costs that can be recovered. And we had not previously been doing that because of a misinterpretation that I had made of the code. So we're going to fix that and try and see if we can't create a policy for you to review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Ms. Randolph?
Nothing else.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Moving on to the consent item, is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to the consent items? And before we do that, Council Member Holland, you had made a comment about, well, we'll wait for the community first. Anyone in the gallery for consent items? Just on the consent items are all together, and then the action items will be for each one individually. 2 separate sections.
Consent items are A through G.
No, A and B only. If you look at the bottom, it says action item. It's kind of cut off, and then it flips over. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. There's action items are after that. No, that's okay. No, you're not. Anyone for consent items? Anyone online? All right, and with that, we are at consent items.
Make a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Hall.
Can we
Yep.
do that with a correction to Mr. Fashing's name?
Mrs. Holland.
Okay. That's what I would like, is to
Okay.
correct Mr. Fashing's name.
And I think, no, Mrs. Hogan, I believe, has already caught that.
Okay.
And will be making that correction before they're actually published.
And I touched something and I lost it.
Okay, that's okay.
I can't even look at the document anymore.
And Mrs. Hogan, so motion by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Hall. Mrs. Hogan.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Alderman,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to action items. Is there anyone in the gallery to speak to action item C, Hearing Examiner RFQ, Joe Turner, PC 3-year contract? Anyone online? Seeing none?
I
Action, go ahead.
make a motion to approve action item C, hearing the examiner.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Dowdy. Councilmember Rounds.
Well, he was the only one to submit on this particular item, and I think he's done a fairly decent job so far. I make a motion that we approve his contract again, so.
Mrs. Dowdy.
I agree.
Further discussion? Mrs. Hogan, please take the roll on action item C, Hearing Examiner RFQ, Joe Turner.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Alderman,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Anyone in the gallery to speak to action item D, CJTC, which would be the Criminal Justice Training Commission grant contract for Officer Bolo? Please state your name.
Donna Butler. So I sent out an email, a letter to all of you on the board. I just wanted did everyone get a chance to see that and read it.
Was that the letter?
Yeah, the letter.
I'm trying to find it here. I've seen it.
Did you have a chance to read it?
I lost track of it on this.
Well, I'm sorry I sent it incomplete. I got interrupted. You know, a new grandbaby shows up at the house, you know,
Congratulations.
5 days old. I just had to stop it. So anyway, the end of that should have ended that crime is up, gang writing is up, homelessness is up. The police force have a lot to do. So anyway, for time's sake, I mean, I could read the letter. Would
I read it.
y'all read that? So you have that. Okay. Well, then since you're the ones that are voting, I won't take any more time. But this was not something that I really thought too much about, but I started hearing from community members, so I gave it more thought and looked into it, and so that is why I am making sharing this information with you and asking for the no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want that into public record, that email? Yes. Is that?
Okay, we'll go ahead and make sure that's attached. You bet. Anyone else in the gallery for action item D, CJTC grant contract for Officer Bolo? Anyone online? Seeing none, no one else? We are on action item D, CJTC grant contract for Officer Bolo.
Motion to approve grant contract for Officer Bolo.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Smith.
So far, this hasn't cost the city out of pocket yet with everything
No.
for Officer Bolo.
It's a reimbursable grants that we've received for him,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
I know the email stated, there was other concerns, and I really do appreciate that. And if it comes down to where the city has to pay out of pocket, we'll definitely reevaluate now. But I think having a grant, I think it's been a pretty good program so far.
Councilmember Rounds.
I agree with Mr. Smith. And I think that if it got to a point where it was gonna cost the city, I think citizens might be willing to put forth a little bit of money to help out also.
Further discussion, Mr. Alderman.
I think it's a great program. It's an outreach. It's getting to the youth of our town, also in the schools and other places, and it's a great. I really appreciate it because I want the kids to look at the officers as somebody they can trust, and when they're in need, or if they're scared, or there's something that they come in contact with them, it's somebody they're not scared of, they know they can go to. And if BOLO can help bridge that gap, I think it's worth every bit of it.
And the kids just gravitate towards that. Yeah.
Mrs. Dowdy.
Well, I appreciate your email very much. And I do understand your concern is that this grant particularly is for officer wellness, but BOLO is for more than just officer wellness. And this grant is not all that we receive for BOLO. And so BOLO is used for more than just our officer wellness. BOLO is used for our community as well. So although just this grant is what we're approving today, BOLO is used for more than just our officers. And so this grant helps with the cost of BOLO, but BOLO is received by the whole community. So I think that is where your concern is that, yes, this grant particularly is giving us money to help with BOLO, but we do receive other money, and we get help from the veterinary office to help with costs for BOLO and things like that. But he is a community dog as well. He is not just for our officers. And so I want to make you feel a little bit like, just because we have this grant does not mean he's just for the officers and for their well-being. This grant just helps in supporting the cost of BOLO. And Chief, do you have anything to say? I don't know if you've even gotten the email or know what the email had said.
No, the email was forwarded to me.
Okay.
And I can tell you that since BOLO has been at the PD, complaints about officers in the field has gone down tenfold. So it has an impact. Not only does it have an impact on our community, but it also has an impact on the stress level of the officers. And I will tell you that I believe it's 5 other agencies, because of BOLO, have implemented a wellness animal program, because it does have an impact on your police department. It does have an impact on your officers and how they contact you. Whether it be in a stressful situation or and I hate to use the word routine traffic stop, routine contact, but those officers' demeanor is different, because I think he does have that impact. And I think it was last week, we did send out a survey to officers in the department to see if that 4-legged fella has an impact on their well-being and their stress level in the office. Haven't seen the results of that yet, because we have different shifts, and not every officer has had an opportunity to take that. But that's just the impact that he has, and that he bridges that gap between the community. He's a bridge for us, bridges that gap, and Councilmember Alderman talked about it. That bridge between a young person or anybody in the community that's not willing to approach us. If we have BOLO there, they approach us. And he's not only is he part of the PD or part of the city, he's part of our community. You can contact any of the members of the school district. If you spent any time at Planners Days, he was there. You spend any time in any of the schools, it's hard for you to walk down the hall and some kid not mention BOLO's name, or mention the fact that BOLO appeared. I had a little guy at the office today who mentioned that. He came in with his mom for other business, and he mentioned BOLO. So he's having a big impact on us. He's having a big impact on your officers as well.
Thank you, Chief. Mrs. Ramson.
I think Mrs. Butler's, one of her concerns was the time that the officer spent with the dog, the cost of that. I think partly was, if I got the reading right, I think she was a little concerned about that.
Well, the officers don't spend any more time in the office because of BOLO. The officers, and I've received several comments on how more visible your police department is in the community. We're not just hanging out, spending time playing with the dog. We're keeping our community safe. We're providing you guys, or, sorry, that's bad term. Providing our citizens with the service that they expect from your police department. So we're not just hanging out playing with the dog. Hey, they might get their doggy fix and go out and go to a horrible call. And then come back, do their paperwork, and he's pretty keen because he knows when an officer is feeling a little stressed. So he's figuring things out, and I think he's figuring out his job. The best part that we have for that is our grant. We have the help from the community. We have the help from the commission to help us care for this animal. And so all you have to do is call, and we'll bring them by if you want. But if you're concerned about officers not being out in the community doing their job because of BOLO, it's not true.
Mr. Alderman.
I can speak with my own history with animals. I was with a lot of people don't know I was with the volunteer fire department, Calais District 3 for 7 years, and I've been on some horrific calls, and I was very, very involved with the kids up there in Castle Rock with my boys and coaches and stuff like that. Some of the scenes that I went to involved some of them kids. And let me tell you, when I got back to the station, we kind of had a department dog. He was our chief's dog, but he was always there. I thank God every day that dog was there for me when I got there. Because he kind of takes your mind off a little bit. And Chief talks about some of the things the police force sees. Just coming back, I know I got to spend some time with Bolo when I took a tour of my grandson. That dog was awesome. He made me smile the first 30 seconds I was there. That'll take your mind off things. Because some of the things that these officers see and the first responders see, the sooner you can get that through, the better off it is.
Before you go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I guess I will follow up on that, is we have the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs has implemented a wellness program. Every law enforcement agency in the state of Washington now has a wellness app on their phone, encouraging officers to use that. If they're having a bad day, they can contact a therapist. Nobody knows about it. It's totally confidential. They also have other parts of the wellness program: nutrition, exercise, stress relievers. I think there's even I have it on my phone, and I really haven't messed around with it that much, but there's a white noise type thing to help them sleep. It talks about insomnia. It talks about general health. So that's part of the program. And
Is a chaplaincy service in that part of that program?
The chaplain's numbers are one touch.
Perfect.
And you can speak with a chaplain. One touch, you can speak with a therapist. One touch, it can point you to directions to get help for stress, substance abuse, alcohol, anything. So it's all available.
Thank you. Mrs. Holland?
So, when we first agreed to this program, in my head, it sort of reminded me of Shop with a Cop. That it's another tool, because kids don't always come into contact with law enforcement under the best of circumstances. So it's an opportunity, and law enforcement don't always get to do fun things. And so it's a good way for everybody to come out and surround the community and do Shop with a Cop. It's grant funded and by donations too. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, actually, our Shop with a Cop program is now a nonprofit organization.
Good job.
So we receive donations. That's what we live on with Shop with a Cop. And Mrs. Connor does a great job with that program.
And gets a lot of newspaper coverage and people dig it. The law enforcement officers enjoy themselves, the kids enjoy themselves. It's a big shindig. That's kind of how I put this, the wellness dog program and Shop with a Cop. It's just another way to be out in the community doing things that they don't always get to do, so. And secondly, I'm not so sure why people don't like the dog. Like, I'm just baffled by that. It isn't costing taxpayer dollars. Nobody's paying, the lieutenant doesn't get extra because she takes the dog home, does she?
No.
She volunteered to do that.
It was offered to the officers first, and they chose no officer offered to apply for the program to handle the dog. So therefore, it was given to the lieutenant.
There you go.
It was either the lieutenant or the chief. We
And
give it to the
neither one
lieutenant.
of you are complaining, correct?
No.
No.
So I'm curious as to why it's an issue if your department doesn't have an issue. Like if you don't think there's an issue, I don't know why it's an issue. You know what I'm saying? And so, until you say it's an issue, I guess I will keep the rest of my comments to myself. There we go.
Anything further on action, Mr. Smith?
And this is still like beginning with the dog. I don't think the dog's gone through all of its training yet for
No.
emotional support. I mean, this is still in its infancy of it. So I would like to see it play out and see what the long-term benefit is. And if it's good, then, you know, I mean, we're taking a little bit of a gamble and trying it. I think it'll be a good thing at the end of the day. So I would like to see it play out.
Anything further? Action item D. Ms. Hogan, please take the roll on action item D, CJTC Grant Contract Officer Volo.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Alderman.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Anyone in the gallery for action item E, ordinance number 1537, update of the Woodland Municipal Code 9.52.150 regarding park hours, first reading.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry, no, waiting
Wait,
for
we gotta wait.
comments from the gallery or online. Seeing none, action item E.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 1537.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Hall. Councilmember Rounds.
Well, I think it needed to be defined by dusk to dark rather than the stated hours because sometimes, well, it varies, you know. When the summer it's longer, the winter it's shorter. So I think this just defines it for us.
Mr. Hall,
Agreed, makes sense.
further discussion? Councilmember Holland.
So just for clarification, we're not changing the park hours from dusk till dawn. We're not doing it as a way, just for clarification, we're not doing it as a means to deal with anybody hanging out in the park that is unhoused.
Gotcha.
Is that correct?
Ms. Coleman.
So the actual park hours don't address that. This is just the change of the hours itself. There is another part of the ordinance that addresses that there's no camping in the park. But it actually is because when we have unwanted activity in the park, and I'm not talking about camping, I'm talking about graffiti, anything else that's going on. If we say from dusk to dawn, we can shoo them out of there. So there's not supposed to be any activity after hours, during dark hours, but instead of, so it's for that reason. It doesn't address what the camping ordinance that we already have in place.
Perfect, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Rounds.
We're still okay though, anytime someone has an event like Planner's Day or, you know, whatever, we're still okay with that.
Yeah, that gets approved individually
Special
for the
events.
events, for the special events. So when we have movies in the park, we get a special exception for stuff
Okay.
like that. Yes, that's correct. Or if we have Planters Day and the carnival rides and stuff, we do
Right.
special exceptions for that.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything further? Mrs. Hogan, please take the roll on action item E, ordinance number 1537, update of the Woodland Municipal Code regarding park hours. First reading.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Alderman.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any citizen communication for action item F, amendment number 1 to extend professional services agreement with Gibbs and Olson as city engineering consultant, or online. Seeing none, moving on to action item F, amendment number 1 to extend professional services agreement with Gibbs and Olson.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Dowdy, second by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Dowdy.
This is the one that came in, and we had them speak last meeting, and I think they did a good presentation, and I think we should move forward with it.
Councilmember Rounds.
Well, they've done a great job so far, and I agree with Mrs. Dowdy.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hogan, please take the roll on action item F, amendment number 1 to extend professional services agreement with Gibbs and Olson as city engineering consultant.
Councilmember Alderman.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
The ayes have it. Moving on to action item G. Anyone in the gallery or online for comments on action item G, amendment number 2 and 3 for professional services agreement with HHPR for construction management and inspection of Lakeshore Drive sanitary and water project. Seeing none, we are at action item G.
Motion to approve amendment number 2 and 3.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Dowdy, second by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Dowdy.
This is the one that we do the lowest bid, right? And so this is the one that came in at lowest bid, and it's a project that we need to get done, correct?
Well, this isn't for the contractor, this is for the engineering services, and that isn't a low bid.
Okay.
So, we actually, what happened was that project was delayed. If you remember, we had allocated funding, and I kind of wrote that in there. So we were supposed to have more of an overlap of services, so we expected the engineering services to not be as much. These amendments are for extending that project on because we had to bring it into the new year because the asphalt plant was closed. So this is for their additional inspection services, so on and so forth. And we're not talking very much money. I think it's $30,000.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Councilmember Rounds.
I agree.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hogan, please take the roll on action item G, amendment number 2 and 3 for professional services agreement, HHPR for construction management and inspection of Lakeshore Drive sanitary and water project.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Alderman.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The time is now 7:53. We are moving into a workshop regarding park impact fees. And I've got 2 comments here, but Ms. Coleman, I think we'll start with your presentation first before we do that, okay?
Basically, I just want to talk about, there was confusion about what park impact fees are, so on and so forth. So I just wanted to do a little presentation about what they are. There also was an email that had been sent to council members with information in it that I don't fully agree with, and I did contact the individual that sent the email and shared that I didn't agree with it and gave them the opportunity to have a rebuttal. So I just want everybody to know that I was in direct contact with the person that sent the email, and I'm always up for a little bit of a challenge and a debate. So this is my debate. So in regards to park impact fees, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So here's kind of what I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover what are park impact fees, what's the primary goal of a fee, what we've done in the past, what I see that I would suggest for the future, and just kind of a summary. So what are park impact fees? So we as a city of Woodland are able to access a fee for new development in the city. So basically, per Washington State, Chapter 82.0 RCW, the purpose of the impact fee is to provide a financing tool for developing system improvements that will serve new development, not existing development, new development. There are clear limits as to what impact fees can be imposed and used for, and cities that choose to impose impact fees must establish specific system improvements in their capital facilities plan, which is an element of their comprehensive plan, which we have done since 2005. The City of Woodland enacted, I'm just reading this since you gotta go back one, please. Nope. The City of Woodland enacted park and recreation impact fees in the fall of 2005. I'm reading this so people at home can hear it, and that if those who can't see the screen very well can see what I put on there. So the City of Woodland enacted park impact fees in the fall of 2005. The fees are provided by developers of residential structures, and all monies collected are directed to fund the needs of improvements. Collection of impact fees are authorized by the GMA, and we are a growth management city. Impact fees were used to purchase the property for Scott Hill Park. Impact fees were used as part of a grant match for construction of Horseshoe Lake Park Trail that everybody's using. They were also used to reopen Gorig Park. If you remember, Gorig Park was closed. So we used impact fees to reopen that park. They are also slated for the use of the RCO grant match that we just received for Scott Hill Park. They are slated for projects listed in the Park Capital Improvement Plan. The impact fee structure is to be evaluated each time the park plan is updated to meet the capital, infrastructure, and parkland needs for this growing community. So we actually had a park plan. We submitted the park plan. We showed the capital projects of all the parks and all the land, and so that's what the park impact fees are to be used for. If you look at Washington State and you read about what Washington State has allowed cities to do for park impact fees, this is the general consensus. The professional planning opinion locally, nationally, and globally sits squarely in favor of impact fees. Additionally, the economic research suggests that impact fees are a form of land value capture, causing lower land prices rather than higher housing costs. While there is evidence that impact fees can increase housing prices, research suggests that may actually be due to the additional services they provide. After all, a well-funded school often correlates to higher housing prices. Overall, planners and community members often see the policy as a fair way to fund additional services needed due to growth. I want to make sure that we're clear that we're talking about growth, not existing residences. We're talking about new development in the town. So I'm giving you resources where you can look at this information. I did a lot of extensive research on this, and I just wanted to put these quotes in there so you guys can do your research as well. So who is assessed a park impact fee? New residential development only. Single family and multifamily homes are assessed park impact fees. Not resale of homes, nothing else. Also, businesses, commercial and industrial developments are not assessed park impact fees. It's only for a brand new developer coming in building single family or multifamily homes who are assessed park impact fees. So what are our primary goals with park impact fees? It's to fund our capital facility plan that's out of our park plan that we just approved. If you look at this, on May 15th of 2023, Resolution 764, we provided information to citizens. We had surveys go out there. We had open houses. The citizens and the council passed the Park Capital Facility Plan. That plan is out there. It's on our website. These are the projects that we've listed on there that had to be done. We have Scott Hill Park Sports Complex, Southwest Woodland Mini Park, Southeast Central Woodland Park, Horseshoe Lake Park Extension, which would be now the splash pad. We received a donation for that land. Lewis River Recreational Project, Floodway Park, development of any recreational paths and trails throughout the city. The source of funding that you get for these capital projects are either from the city itself or for grants or private donations. So as you see, Ben Adobe provided us land, so there's a private donation. Now we as a city, we said we were going to develop this land. So how do we develop that? We develop that by funds out of the general fund, or we develop it by impact fees, or we develop it by other people who are donating money to be able to build that park. So here's some facts, and some of these are in relationship to the email that was sent to all the council members, but facts are impact fees are a one-time collection for new development in a town for the purpose of increased or improved recreational facilities. So it's a one-time fee that goes out to the builder. Impact fees are not a tax and do not charge current residents. Commercial and industrial development do not pay park or school impact fees. So any businesses coming to town are not imposed with a park or impact fee. Woodland has developed approximately 230 lots since impact fees have gone into place in our city since 2005. So for 18 years, we've been collecting park impact fees, and not a lot on park impact fees, mind you, as well. But for 18 years, we've imposed park impact fees and we've been collecting them. When you finance a home, you don't just finance park impact fees. That was one of the arguments. They're saying if you do away with park impact fees, you know, they're going to lower the price on the house. My argument is when you finance a home, you finance an entire package. Engineering, land, foundation, the frame and the timber package, the windows, the doors, the drywall, the plumbing, water and sewer, electrical, HVAC, all your finishes, your appliances, your carpet, your interior finishes, your paint, your light fixtures, your fencing, your siding, your gutters, your soffit, your fascia, your building permits, your sewer and water tie-in, half-street road improvements, sidewalks, street lights, the entire package. So to say that park impact fees will raise the builder's costs, I don't believe it is a necessary true statement that you're financing that. You finance an entire package. Housing prices are based on neighborhood appeal, condition of the property, and overall housing market, local trends in the market, and right now we all know it's a seller's market. Inventory is low, houses are selling for more than they appraise for, and people are coming to the table with cash out of their pocket because it appraises too low, but they need a house and there's not enough inventory in the market. Inflation causes property prices to increase. Limits of supply and demand put upward pressure on housing values. It's a basic law of supply and demand. If you don't have enough supply, prices are going to raise. Investors in 2021 bought 2 times more homes for investment than in 2019. That's out of Forbes magazine. You can't deny that. Investors are buying them, they're renting them out. So to say that, you know, you can't have affordable housing, you have investors coming out here left and right buying up houses and turning them into rentals because they can get the rental price for them. The ideal profit margin for somebody who builds like commercial is between 8 to 20%, but usually we all know that more profit is good if you're an investor, and the average net profit margin for construction is between 3 to 7%. This is according to IBIS World. You can do all the research and find this there. When an average developer buys a piece of land, whether it's in Woodland, Ridgefield, the center, wherever they're going, they've already done a quick calculation on what it's going to cost them to build and develop this land, and they've calculated out their return. Less overhead costs means more profit for that developer. So in the past, impact fees from 2005 to June of 2023, impact fees are supposed to be evaluated every 6 years when the park plan is completed. The park impact fees were not evaluated in the 2016 park plan. Impact fees have remained the same for nearly 20 years, about $1,000 for single family residents and $800 for multifamily residents. Our balance of currently collected park impact fees will be wiped out with the grant match that we're doing for Scott Hill Park's artificial turf field. That project is about a $450,000 project. We're going to wipe out our entire collection of park impact fees that we have in our fund right now by doing this one grant match. Our impact fees are the lowest of all surrounding communities And if you look here, if I'm showing single-family residents only because it would take up too much time to go into multifamily, as we know multifamily is lower. But La Center's park impact fees are $2,800. Castle Rocks are $6,600 to $13,000. This is per single-family residence. Ridgefield is $4,000. Battleground is $4,200, $4,300. Camas is $5,800. Vancouver is $72,000 to $8,000. Longview and Kelso are non-GMA, so they do not charge park impact fees. So we're charging $1,116. We have not addressed it for 18 years, and you can look at the other communities around us. Those other communities are getting ready. You can see the years where they're supposed to readdress it. So La Center, that park impact fee of $28.42 was from 2017 when they imposed that, and they're getting ready to reevaluate theirs right now in 2022. So they're a year behind like we were, because ours didn't get addressed, remember, like I told you, in 2016. And so our actually park plan was supposed to be redone in 2022, and it was missed. So we redid it and approved it in 2023. So that's when we are addressing our park impact fees this year. Castle Rock will reevaluate theirs in 2028. Ridgefield in 2026. So their $4,000 has been in place for a couple of years now, 3 years now. So just in a couple of years, they're going to reevaluate. I can guarantee you right now, Ridgefield is not going to go down. Battleground, $4,300. They're going to readdress theirs at the same time. They just raised theirs in 2022 last year. And that's based on when you do your park impact fees, you base it on the previous year. So when we did ours in 2005, it was based on 2004 data. So their Battleground, when they did theirs, is based on probably 2021 data. Camas did theirs in 2021, Vancouver 2022, and so on and so forth. So just want you to know where those are at and when they'll be reevaluated in the future. So our impact fees for mid-2023, we're going to bring to council. I'm going to bring it to council next month. And I'm recommending approving our park impact fee increase to $4,500 per WMC 341160 based on what we're supposed to be charging park impact fees. Our park board recommends increasing the park impact fees. Public Works Committee recommends increasing park impact fees. Our park plan, our capital improvement plan, was approved by citizens and council, which talk about the capital improvements that we want throughout our city. The park plan was forwarded to the Recreation and Conservation Office, the RCO office, and was approved for grant funding. So we actually already sent this off. They've approved it and they've given us a grant. Now, the other thing is park impact fees will be used for capital improvements in our park and grant match dollars. Scott Hill Park, a splash pad, new restrooms, Lewis River Road Park. That's the one off of State Route 503 that's down by the waterfront. And, basketball courts. We don't have any basketball courts in town. So these are just ideas of what those park impact fees can be used for in town. So in summary, population growth and development has an adverse impact on the city-funded parks and recreation. City-provided services and infrastructure are being utilized by more citizens, which has resulted in a more rapid depreciation in infrastructure. At the recommendation of the Park Board, Public Works Committee, and the required evaluation of park impact fees per the park plan, we suggest increasing park impact fees for funding capital projects and improving our park and recreation element of the City of Woodland for all of our residents. And this is new growth only. So I can leave it open for comments or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. We're having this discussion tonight. The park impact increase was on the last meeting, and council asked that this be brought back forward for further discussion. And before I turn it over to you, I do have two citizen comments that were sent in that I'd like to read into the record here real quick. Dear Woodland City Council, I'm writing in response to the proposed park impact fees. I understand that the city has not made any changes to these fees since 2005. I'm writing in support of increasing the fees. In a changing world where everything seems to be getting more expensive, it only makes sense that the fees keep pace with the needs of the growing city. Ultimately, the city is responsible for maintaining and developing our parks. If we don't keep up with the demands of our parks, it leaves our parks in a sad state of affairs with no money to maintain or develop them. The city is already doing as much as they can with very limited staff and budget. As development continues, there is a greater need for places where people can recreate. I moved to Woodland 13 years ago and fell in love with the abundance of outdoor recreation opportunities. As most of the bottoms, access to the Columbia River gets closed or has less access, it makes people search for additional opportunities. I've slowly had to find new areas where there is public access to walk in wide open spaces. Many of these spaces have been developed into new homes. It only makes sense to ensure that people who will move into these homes help with the burden of developing and maintaining our parks. Additional parks or opportunities will be necessary to offset the increase in homes. The argument that this will create less affordable housing is questionable. With the housing market already unaffordable for most families, it is highly unlikely that the fee paid will burden the actual buyers of these homes. It is likely the developer may have to absorb some of these fees if they cannot sell a home for what the market dictates, not an impact fee. I'm all for providing housing, but what has happened is an influx of people coming from out of the area with higher wages or money to spend. They are seeking the same thing I found when I moved to Woodland. Why not ensure that these new homes being constructed help preserve the area that we all love to call home? The city infrastructure is already a problem. If this impact fee slows down development, it gives the city additional time to address the needs of future infrastructure improvements. After seeing neighboring towns explode with growth, there are some lessons to be learned from what they have experienced. The supporting documents from neighboring cities, I feel, is a fair representation of what course Woodland needs to take as far as keeping up with the exponential growth of the city. Residents Tom and Brittany Douglas of Woodland. And the other one's just a little bit shorter here. Dear City Council, I'm writing regarding park impact fees. Our current park impact fees have not been updated for several years, and they are much lower than surrounding cities. With all the upcoming development in our city, we would benefit from increasing our fees now. Our city needs more recreation for our growing population, and our current parks would benefit from some updating. I know my family would love to have more options outdoors closer to home. Thank you, the Johnson family. And with that, I will kick it over to City Council. Ms. Adonica, would you like to speak before? Yes, our park board member here, and I'll have you step up to the podium, please. I figured there was a reason why you're here tonight, but I thought you were just observing, so, but please.
So my name is Adonica Simpson, and I'm here tonight to represent, I've been a resident for over 30 years in the city limits of Woodland, and a business owner for 22 years, and we own a mini storage, so we see firsthand a lot of the folks moving in and out of the area for different reasons. I myself have raised my family here and feel very honored to have done that, and my children are now raising their families here. And we believe that you give back to your community as much as you can, you don't just take from it. And as we're all discussing, I 100% agree with the influx of new folks coming into the area, that we have to be prepared to provide a great environment and to keep our community growing as beautifully as the surrounding areas are. And as you mentioned, I am on the park board, have been on for several years, but I'm not here to represent the park board. I'm just here to explain that because I've been on that park board for so long, we've been through several of the park plans and have struggled for many years not having enough money to do the improvements and the things that we've all really wanted to see happen in our parks. Now, in the last, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years, we've there's been quite an improvement, but that's not by accident. That's been by people creatively working really hard to find ways to make it happen. And what I find concerning is that I think the community is struggling financially so much that they just immediately equate any increases as coming in as taxes on themselves. I don't think our general public understands what impact fees will do for us. So I think Tracy did a phenomenal job showing us what it is supposed to do for us and why we're behind on the improvements on our parks. If you look at our surrounding cities, they're doing a better job, but that's not for lack of want. That's not because we don't care. It's because we don't have the funds to do it. And you could see they have more money to work with because they've had those impact fees. And we're not looking to tax anybody. We're looking to get the income that will take care of our community like it should be done. And that is by these builders that are making so much money, and then they're not doing their part. They take their money and they walk away. They're done. But we're still here trying to make a nice community. And if the pandemic taught us anything, our emotional well-being was held together by the fact that we could go sit in Horseshoe Park. We could get out. We could still smile at each other from a distance and be outside. And, you know, just as Bolo is helping us come together, we have to bring ourselves back together and get back into these parks. But then, well, they have to be beautiful. They have to be taken care of, or they become depressing. Then they become just one more thing that makes us feel like we're not as good as somebody else, or that we can't thrive here. Our children don't deserve that. Our families don't deserve that. So I'll stay on the park board, and I'll keep fighting to try to make our parks as beautiful and as accessible and as equal to the amount of people that are coming in here. But we have to have those funds. We just do. You can't keep squeezing it out of nothing. And I just can't say enough that I'm so grateful so much has been accomplished, but it's really time to have some money to work with. And this is a reasonable way to do it. So I strongly urge the council to consider these increases. They are reasonable and badly needed. And the community does come up to us individually and express their concerns. They'll ask us why we don't have what La Center has. Well, why can't we have that? Why can't we have what Ridgefield has? Well, we can, and we will. You know, we're working so hard, so many people are, for Scott Hill Park to be a success. But with these grants, you have to have money to match those grants. We can't all just sit back and wait for something to get handed to us. So we all have to do our part, and that definitely means those contractors that are building these homes, they've got to take care of us. They've got to give us what we deserve to keep this community where we all want to live and thrive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Is there anyone else in the gallery that would like to, oh, sorry, yes. And could you just give us a name, please?
Yes, my name is Mike Morgan, and I'm here to speak in favor of increasing these park impact fees, especially for multi-home, multi-family construction. I'm the pastor at Lewis River Fellowship, the Nazarene Church at 2000 Lewis River Road. So this Lewis River Park is kind of close in my neighborhood. But we have most of our property is open field in the back, and we have a lot of neighbors coming down from Gun Club, walking dogs. Just some people bring their lunch and just sit out there and eat. And I just see that that's such a need in that community. And many times if we leave it undone, we had the fire department come not too long ago and put out a fire of some camper that was in the back. So, I think the more that we can spend on making our parks green and more accessible is a good thing. But I would say I'm especially interested in multifamily impact fees. That those really are people coming into town, doing their job and leaving, and they really need to take responsibility. My wife and I moved here 6 years ago from Denver, and in the Denver area, contractors, developers are required to put open space in their new development. Required to. It's nothing that we have to do and then hope they help fund it, but they actually have to do it as part of their program. So I am all for that, and I think so many families in the area really get some good use from it. But thanks for hearing me. I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Anyone else in the gallery to speak before we turn it over to council? Yes, sir. And please state your name for the record, whatever you'd like to call yourself.
Sure. I'm Pat Reichel. I live at 497 CC Street. I'm a longtime resident. And I should disclose to you, I'm also a park board member, so I'm a little biased. Tracy, you really forgot to show them how you calculated those figures. It's based on a ton of data in population. It is very, very impressive how you arrived at those figures. But anyway, I'm here to support the impact fees. impact fees have not been adjusted since 2005, 18 years ago. It's time to update them. Maybe you can help me out on this. Our general property tax revenue doesn't have anything dedicated to the park, does it?
No.
Every year, the council will then decide what we're gonna do with the park and what they're gonna have. In other words, the park plan is fed by the city council. Okay,
Yes.
just wanna
We
make
try
sure
to do our
that's
best
it.
during the budget process to
Yes.
allocate funds
Yeah.
for maintenance and those types of things, yes.
So I think it's very important then that we do get impact fees, so there'd be additional funding, provided by, not a general tax revenue increase. It's paid for by, the new, development. Impact fees are a positive and efficient way to generate funds for new parks and capital improvements. Impact fees reduce the tax burden caused by new residential growth. Its focus targeting new residential development. Impact fees attempt to pay for the cost of growth. Impact fees are a requirement in the city woodland park plan. Impact fees can be used for grant matches, further leveraging city dollars. Good parks improve physical, mental health of our citizens, increase property values, and enhance the livability. So please support increasing the park impact fees.
Thank you, Mr. Reichel. Anyone else in the gallery to speak for the workshop this evening? And I have no one online. And with that, I will now turn it over to council. Mrs. Dowdy.
So I know you said you were gonna bring it back next month. Can we just bring it back next meeting?
I believe council has the option to, Pete, am I correct? They can do what they,
Well, if I remember correctly, council made a motion for a specific date it be brought back,
Can
the
we-
17th.
The
so
17th could be the next meeting.
Oh, okay, it is the
It's
next meeting, okay.
I was
Is it
trying
the
to
next
I
remember
just
meeting?
wanted to make sure that it
Okay.
was sooner than later.
Mrs. Rounds.
I'm like the pastor. I could be for a apartment complex paying impact fees, but anyone that is against higher costs for homes, I don't know that I'm for the individual houses, but I'm all for an apartment complex that some corporation's gonna build or whatever. And those people, like the pastor said, they come and go. They're not members of this community that live in apartment buildings as a rule. So, for those people that are in favor of lower housing, I'm just not for the impact fees, but can we do it on apartment buildings and not do it on houses?
I think you guys can do whatever you want.
Okay,
But
that's what I wanted to know.
yes, but what I will share with you is that the financing is not, park impact fees are not part of the financing. I'm hoping that I explained that in my presentation. So that's
No,
what,
it's
yeah.
not, but it is the cost of a home. It is
Yes,
included in the
it's-
cost of a home.
It's included in the cost of the home is based and driven on what the market will bear. It's, what's included is the less profit that goes into the builder's pocket if he pays the park impact fees.
Yeah, but he's not gonna pay that. He's gonna ship it on to the consumer, so.
It's what the market will bear, yeah, so.
I'm gonna pop this way and then I'll pop over. Mr. Simpson, or Mr. Simpson. Mr. Smith.
I can definitely see
I
your.
just wrote your name down to make sure we got you on the record, so that's.
I can definitely see your point, Mrs. Rounds, but it's hard for me to sit back and say 2005 is the last increase, and my home value from 2016 to now has went up $200,000, and it has not increased in that amount of time. So I have a tendency to kind of disagree. The ones that I think it will disproportionately affect is going to be the ones who build their own home. They are going to pay more to build your own home, but a contractor is going to sell that home for market rate, and if he can sell it for $400,000, he's going to sell it for $400,000. If he's going to sell it for $600,000, he would sell it for $600,000. He is going to make as much money as he can on that home sale, without a doubt. He will do that. Every realtor will tell him to do that. The impact fees are not going to make a huge difference in the price of a home. It is purely a market demand, and right now we are not building enough homes in this country to get houses lowered. It's not happening. Same thing with apartments. We are not building enough apartments to get the cost of apartments lowered. Apartments are, you know, when my wife worked in an apartment back in 2000, she was a leasing agent. She would call other apartment communities and find out what their vacancy rate was for their apartments. They would say, our vacancy rate is this. And if it was at a certain number, their owners would go, okay, it's time for us to increase our rates. It is purely based off of occupancy and sales of homes. If we don't have enough homes, costs are going to continue to go up. This impact fee is not going to make any difference whatsoever. The only thing it's going to do is make a difference for our community. So I 100% support this. 2005, the costs have not gone up. Price of labor has gone up. Price of material has gone up since 2005. The only thing that hasn't gone up is park impact fees. We cannot get the value of our dollar today from what we got in 2005 when that rate was set.
Mr. Burke.
I was here in 2005 when we put the impact fees in. A question I got is, does the person building the home, is he allowed to build a park instead of paying impact fees or not?
Yes, when a builder comes in, if they say, can I give you something in lieu of? So your impact fees, like if you have a transportation impact fee, let's say for instance, a developer says, what if I put a roundabout in for you instead of paying a transportation impact fee because I see that you need a I'm just throwing a roundabout out. I shouldn't say that. I should say a stoplight. I should say a stoplight.
It's a slippery slope, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Or what if I put in more cross circulation road instead of paying the parking? I'll just build the road for you. I'll put it that way. Sorry about that. That was a bad example. But if I build a road for you, can I do that in lieu of a transportation impact fee? Absolutely, if it's a benefit to the community. Can I actually build you the splash pad instead of paying the park impact fees? Absolutely, benefit to the community. So, and usually what they're not going to offer you something more. They're going to try to offer you something less, but it might be less for them, but more for you. For instance, when we do a project, we go out to bid, and when we go out to bid, we have to pay prevailing wage. They don't have to pay prevailing wage. They can build it for cheaper than we can build it. So if they say, hey, I'm going to build your splash pad and it might cost me $500,000 and it could cost them $300,000 and their park impact fees are $350,000, that's a good way to leverage that and say we'll take that splash pad in lieu of us having to go out and build it because we're going to get that full benefit. They're going to get a benefit because they're going to save $50,000 and then we're going to get the benefit because now we're not going to pay $200,000. If that's so they always have the option to negotiate when they come in and say, can I do this in lieu of? And then it's up to the staff and the board to determine whether or not that's a good fit for the community and the need for the community. So yes. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
good answer.
Mr. Alderman.
Maybe I'm looking at it a different way. One of your letters touched on it. I look at it for a good way, a couple different ways. One, everybody wants to get things done. Everybody wants to beautify this town so it'll bring in more businesses. So that's how this town thrives. If we live off the sales tax, stuff like that. In order to bring more people in, we want to beautify the place to do it. But nobody wants to pay for it. It's got to come somewhere. This is an absolute perfect way of doing it. My other part of it is, I think it's even a bigger win. If it deters people from building right now, so be it. The traffic problem we have is astronomical. We're not getting any help from the state or anywhere else to fix exit 21. So if this deters some people from coming in, it's not going to break my heart.
Mr. Hall.
I want to first of all thank the council and thank staff for the input here. When this came up a couple of weeks ago, other than JJ and maybe Carol, I don't think most of us were around and had anything to do with the last discussion on impact fees. So we were all in the dark to some extent. I've had a lot of conversations with different people in the community, and I decided to do my own research. So I looked up the RCW, what you can use the funds for, how you can assess it. I did that research. I also went to two independent builders who build custom homes. They're not developers and they're not speculators. They only build for private individuals. And I talked to them about how they do their costing. I also enlisted the help of a realty company, an arm's length realty company, to analyze the Woodland market. And I asked that company to tell me how many buildable single-family resident lots are in Woodland. Do an inventory, and let's take a look at where they are and what they are. And because that was one of the arguments that had come up from one of my conversations with someone had said, well, if you build your own house with a private custom builder, then the impact fee could make a difference in what you pay. So that's the reason I enlisted the realty company to do that research. That was just last week. They came back with an inventory of home sites in Woodland that are available to build on that are not controlled by a developer. Anybody want to guess how many? 0. There are none in the city of Woodland. There's not a single family lot that you can build on in the city of Woodland that is now for sale in the entire city. So that argument is out the door, basically. The only housing that's coming online in Woodland is coming through developers, either single family or multifamily. And I think it's been pretty well established how they price those projects. And they're priced based on what the market will bear. The impact fee has no impact. However, then I sat down after I gathered all this information and I said to myself, what's the right way to do this? You know, because one of the arguments, again, from one of the conversations I had was, well, you know, you could pay for additional extension of streets, additional policing, additional public works, additional parks. You could pay for all that out of the general fund. And so I thought about that. If we do that, where is the burden for new growth? It's all on the back of the existing residents.
Yes.
Absolutely no burden borne by the folks coming in, adding to the supply of housing. Now I do have a question. Is the impact fee assessed at the time of the building permit, or is it at the time of the development approval?
When they apply for the building permit, correct?
That's when it's paid.
When it's paid, yeah.
At the building, at the time of the building permit.
It's submitted to the building permit counter when they pay for their building permit and pick it up to begin construction.
Okay. My point is, if we would keep our impact fees up to date, which I'm a little bit taken aback that it's been almost 20 years. 18 years is too long. My personal recommendation would be to never go more than 5 years in looking at these, to keep them on track with the current, what's going on. Even 5 years seems like a while. I think we need regular review of those impact fees. But I also am in 100%, as a result of all this research and study, I'm 100% in favor of not only evening out the impact fees so that one group isn't paying. That was part of the proposal. Even them out, get a level playing field. Everybody uses the parks, everybody uses policing, everybody uses the streets. Make it even. And the second thing is that when you do these impact fees, you need to be at the current level in the economy. And we are way behind because we neglected it too long. So I'm in favor of not only making a level playing field, but also raising those impact fees as staff has recommended. Those were good calculations, by the way, and I think you're right on that when you mentioned the calculation effort. That was a good study. But all of this has been very educational. I don't think just to me. I think we all learned something.
Absolutely.
And I think that what we see is we can be 100% confident that when we do those two things, level the playing field and increase our impact fees, we will begin to see our ability to make some changes, and it'll be more fair. That's the other word that comes to mind is fair. You know, is it fair for the existing population to carry the entire burden of additions? I don't think so. It's only fair if the new people coming in through their new construction have some skin in the game. That's my thought.
Mr. Aldrin.
He had a great point. He said revisit every 5 years. I think 2 years would be a pretty, revisit it every 2 years would be a pretty good time frame. As fast as everything's moving and changing and cost is going up, I think to stay, like you say, even across the board and staying fair, every couple of years wouldn't be a bad idea revisiting this.
Mr. Smith?
I think that's a great idea. I think we need to reevaluate all of our impact fees. I think, what are our current impact fees for building a residential house, Mr. Goddard?
Travis. Mr. Goddard. The average cost of impact fees total to build a single family home.
I think mine were like 19,000 when I moved in 2016.
So that would involve your connection fees as well. Your impact fees, I believe, are around 4,300.
Okay. I think somebody was telling me the costs in Ridgefield are up around 45,000, which I think, from what I've heard, is the highest in the state. And it has not slowed any development whatsoever in Ridgefield. So I think we need to reevaluate all of our impact fees. Oh, Mr. Reichel.
Oh, I was given a sheet here in all the impact fees for Woodland, single-family residences for 2023 total $19,800.
I think that's been corrected.
That's park, school, fire, traffic, water connection, sewer.
I think it's higher.
Sewer connection.
Yeah, I think mine were right around 19 grand as total fees for my permit back in 2016 when I had my house built.
That includes water and sewer connection and water meter fees. The impact fees are specifically about 4,300. And the reason why I know that is because part of Councilman Hall's conversation and research, he spent some time with me, and one of the things I did is I pulled a building permit from Lolo Trail Avenue, and it was a 2016 building permit, and the value of that home was $175,000 at the time of building permit. They paid $4,300, and when that house was completed and it was first assessed for valuation in 2017, even though it was built for $175,000, it was valued at $242,000 less than a year later. It was assessed for 2022 taxes at $510,000, and it's currently on Realtor.com for $560,000. So I suppose you could argue that it would be listed for $556,000 if they didn't have to pay impact fees. But my guess is $560,000 means it was worth more, $50,000 more this year than it was last year because of the quality of life in Woodland, not because of the quality of wood that went into that house.
Any other comments or questions? And Mrs. Holland?
So I appreciate the fact that some park board members came, because the whole time I've been elected, I've been on the Public Works Committee, and the struggle for funding parks is very real. And we've had a lot of conversations about how to just maintain, how to afford to maintain our parks, much less add to them. And if we don't have we haven't had any real development in our inside city limits in a really long time. So if we can add money to the pot, I'm a fan of it, because I do hear the struggle of funding parks. People dig the park, they don't want to pay for the upkeep of the park. And people think I'm nuts when I say, you know, those garbage cans, those are like $600. And if something happens to them, that's $600 from where? Where does that come from? So, so from that in that regard, I'm a fan of bringing any kind of money in that is not taxing existing people that live, because you're right, Councilmember Hall, there is this handful of folks who live inside city limits, and every single thing comes out of their pockets, because God forbid we should allow any development, we should allow anything, we don't want anything new. So here, you handful of people, you're gonna be keep paying for everything. Doesn't matter what it is, you're gonna pay for it. And it would be nice to share that with other people. If you're, and I'm a fan of letting people do with their property what they want. My neighbors had big side yards. They were allowed to put homes there. That's their right to do with their own land, and they were allowed through permitting to do so. So I don't know what kind of money they had to kick in towards impact fees back when they did that, but it's just the nature of the beast. I know people are freaked out by development. I know people are freaked out that there's gonna be apartments, but for that, I also see younger people who can't afford to live here, and that little tiny hole-in-the-wall places that were built 30 years ago are like $1,500 a month. And so kids in our community are still living with their parents. They don't get the opportunity that, like, Aaron, Councilmember Alderman and I are from the same graduating class, and the opportunities that we may have had where you could move out of your parents' house and move in with a buddy and be adults, that doesn't exist anymore. So maybe what Councilmember Smith said, if there was more, and literally people are building apartments anyway, doesn't matter, it's gonna happen. Maybe with added stock, people will have more affordable rent. Folks can stay in the community that grew up here, and developers will kick in to pay for things that are really needed. And the Parks Board will have some money to play with, I guess. I'm sure they would appreciate it. I've had conversations with a Parks Board member when he was lamenting the cost of garbage cans and that they could not afford to replace them. And I also remember when Ms. Coleman threw together a last-minute barbecue fundraiser just to be able to put bark dust in the park, because there was no money to do that. So everybody in this town is creative, we're resilient. I think this is a good opportunity for council to level the playing field. And I don't know why it took 18 years to look at these. I do remember when Ms. Coleman was first hired, when I was just sitting in the back room observing council meetings. And when she took over, they found there was money in a pot that was gonna expire because nobody even knew it existed and nobody knew what to do with it. And that was kind of the mess she inherited when she became the Public Works Director. So she was able to sort through all of that and kind of make all these things happen. And I spend a lot of time applauding you, because you are amazing and you guys have done an amazing job of taking a pile of crap and turning it into some amazing projects. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. Mrs. Dowdy.
I also just want to say I appreciate that we're doing this, as we have, you know, two really big projects coming forward into our city, and, you know, one that has a park right on the Lewis River that we are going to need money for to get that up and running. And so I think this is a great time to make sure that those communities that are coming, that are going to definitely use those parks, are helping pay for them. And so, especially with the splash pad property that we're getting, like, I think it's great that, you know, we're going to be able to continue building on Scott Hill Park, but be able to look forward to building those community portions and expanding what we have available to our own citizens as we move forward. So I think this is great timing, and thank you for bringing it forward before we continue to expand and have no money to continue to grow our parks and outdoor rec for our community.
Mr. Hall.
Yeah, what I just want to reiterate that our role as a council is to be as even-handed to all the residents of our city as we can be. And the only way to do that with new projects coming on, with new services, is to have the impact fee paid by the new development that's coming on. Otherwise, it's unfair. It's fallen to the existing residents, and that was Deanna's issue. So I honestly feel like we don't have any choice but to level the playing field and raise the impact fees and then review them. I'm for reviewing as often as whatever we're allowed to do. I guess that's my thought.
What is Travis up for, I guess, would be the, when he's wanting to bring those back around.
Mr. Smith.
I was talking to the mayor about this a couple days ago. I had one of the residents in town here was talking about a friend of theirs that lives behind me, and their rent is currently $3,100 a month for a 2,300 square foot house, and it's going up to $3,400 a month. I don't know how anybody affords that. That's insane. We need more houses, and we need more places to live to reduce the cost for people. I know it's painful, and I know nobody wants an increase in population, but $3,400 a month for somebody to live in this town for a rental house is insane to me. And I don't think the impact fees are going to impact that rental cost.
Mrs. Holland.
So just to piggyback on that thought process, so I know folks who already live here that are waiting to be able to buy a house, right? So they're living in hotels, which you think that's a lot of money. Pay for a hotel for a month at a time. Or they've purchased motorhomes, and they're living at one of the RV places waiting to buy a house because they work here, but now they're waiting for some house to become available. And the market is so competitive. Like, I know of people who stock home sellers, like, because 10 people want that house. It's one house on the market, but 10 people want it, and they'll pay whatever they can pay to get it because they need housing. And so, for somebody to pay that much to rent a house, that's nuts. But that's it. That's their option. It's that or live in a car. And so, but these are folks who are already here. So they're not adding. To me, it's a lot of conjecture, I guess, of all these people are gonna come here. Well, half this town is full of folks not from the state, not native of this state, I would say. So the folks that have moved here historically over the last decade or two, my concern is for the folks who are already here and would just like to have a place to live in the community they live in currently. You know, that's kind of the the thing there, and I'm not a realtor, so I don't understand all of that stuff, but I do know that it's a crazy market when you're talking about a house that was 175K and now it's worth what, 550? That's what you can get for it. 2 houses down from the food bank, somebody sold a house for almost 800,000. That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. 2 houses down from a food bank, and it went for that much money. Like that, just so. Anyway.
They don't have to go very far to get food. Because at 800K, I wouldn't be able to afford to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for Ms. Coleman? All right. I guess we will be bringing this back forward for you at the next meeting for action. The time is now 8:50 and we have come to the end of our meeting.
I make a motion to end the meeting.
Second.
Mrs. Rounds and Mrs. Dowdy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The time is 8:50. Oh, there's my guy.
Does anybody ever oppose adjourning the meeting?
Sometimes just for fun.
I do during budget season. I'll go
Recording
till after 10.
stopped.
Oh.